Port-au-Prince. When Father Richard says morning mass, it's usually a requiem. People die here every day of cholera, malnutrition, or in accidents. The earthquake of 2010 irrevocably altered the lives of many children. For Jocelynson from the mountains above Port-au-Prince, it marked the start of a new beginning. Jocelynson remembers the earthquake well. Miraculously, he survived unscathed.
I
was sitting in a chair inside the house. I was washing my feet. I think I had just stood up. The house shook, and then it collapsed.
At first sight, the Haitian capital, Port-au-Prince, looks like any other city. But that first impression is deceptive. In the aftermath of the earthquake and tropical cyclones, hundreds of thousands of homeless are still left in what is one of the world's biggest slums.
Last night, very near here, a wall fell on a whole family of people in a tent. I know about it because somebody who wasn't killed ran with a little baby here, a little newborn baby. And we went over there to see if anybody was hurt. And when we pulled up the wall, everybody was dead. The mother and 4 other children were dead. It's a very hard life. It's a very, very hard life when you're in a shelter made out of old cloth and old rags and old tarp, and with mudslides and high rains and the danger of constructions that aren't well done falling. It's really, really difficult. It's a deplorable situation for people who are living in tents, and there are still far too many of them.
Jocelynson attends a school run by Father Richard's organization. The children gather in the schoolyard for morning assembly. The principal addresses them, and then they pray. All the pupils here are orphans, victims of abuse, or abandoned by their parents. Often the families were simply unable to provide for them. But their lives changed thanks to the children's aid organization NPH. The letters stand for Nuestros Pequeños Hermanos, Spanish for Our Little Brothers and Sisters. The NGO operates numerous children's homes in Latin America. Here in Haiti, the first one was built in the mountain village of Kenskof some 30 years ago. The first class today is music, something Jocelynson is very good at. He already plays the flute and has started piano lessons. But he prefers mathematics and geography. He'd like to become a pilot one day. Education is the key to a good life, and NPH gives the children hope for a better future. The organization was founded by an American Catholic priest, the late Father William Wasson, who set high standards.
People with higher education aren't necessarily more merciful. They can be just as cold-hearted as others. So I think if we want to change the world at all, I believe we have to start with children, and we have to start in changing their hearts.
Father Wasson was convinced that a child can only develop trust and self-confidence and learn compassion in a loving environment. Peaceful coexistence is only possible when children are socialized at an early age. His idea was to establish a big family, not an organization. It began in Mexico, a long time ago. William Wasson came from Phoenix, Arizona. He trained for the priesthood in Mexico and became pastor of a small parish in Cuernavaca, south of the capital. One day in 1954, a young boy stole money from the poor box in his church. When Father Wasson discovered that Gustavo was homeless and had only stolen because he was hungry, the priest sought custody of him. Gustavo was only the first child William Wasson rescued. Nuestros pequeños hermanos took on a life of its own. Once his house in Cuernavaca grew too small for all the children, Father Wasson acquired a new home for them in Miacatlan, in the hills south of Mexico City. They moved out to an old hacienda with room for hundreds of children. But it took time and lots of money to make it as comfortable as it is today. The idea of these homes spread from Mexico. The NPH now operates homes in Honduras, Haiti, Nicaragua, Guatemala, El Salvador, the Dominican Republic, Peru, and Bolivia. They now care for nearly 3,500 children. It was Mother Teresa of Calcutta who drew Wasson's attention to the misery in Haiti. At first sight, the island looks like a tropical paradise, but the reality is different. For centuries, Haiti has been afflicted with oppression, exploitation, dictatorship, corruption, and most recently, natural disasters. More than half of the population has to get by on less than €1 a day. But their resilience is amazing. "300,000 people were injured in the devastating earthquake of 2010, and 1.3 million left homeless. Thousands of buildings collapsed, including hospitals and schools. Much of the city is still rubble." But Father Richard and his team are doing all they can. The Catholic priest is also a doctor and national director of NPH.
Every human being should have water. Every human being should have a lodging. They don't all have to be the same. All of them in La Jolla, California, but everybody has right to those things. So when we have too much and somebody else doesn't have any, we have obligation. It's an obligation. It's not charity. It's an obligation, to share the resources of the earth.
Father Richard has already helped hundreds of thousands of Haitians. NPH doesn't only save lives, it provides work for nearly 2,000 Haitians. At their home in the mountains, Jocelyn and the other children have sports practice. Jocelyn's family unraveled after the earthquake. His father was unemployed, his mother missing. He lived for a time with his aunt, but she felt unable to take care of him indefinitely. In spite of everything, he's a happy child. Jocelyn enjoys sports and says he likes action.
I love soccer, and I love volleyball.
At Kenskoff, he can play both. The 400 children here live in smaller groups, in separate houses. Supper is at 6. First, they sing and say grace. At the end of the day, the children enjoy their hot soup. Up here in the mountains, it gets cold at night. Living together in smaller groups creates a family atmosphere. After supper, they clear the table. Then it's time to go to bed. Jocelyn is late today. He had to help with the washing up. Miacatlan in Mexico is the oldest NPH home. Agustina tells us about her childhood. She came here when she was 10. Before that, she says, her life was scarred by fear and deprivation. She had 8 siblings. Her father was an alcoholic and incapable of providing for the family. They often had nothing to eat. After her mother died, the situation became worse.
We went to school when we felt like it. Otherwise, we just didn't go. My father was always drunk, and there was nobody to tell us to go to school, to do our homework, or to act responsibly. We were completely lost.
So her eldest brother decided to take Agustina and her younger siblings to the home in Miacatlan. It took her some time to adjust to this new situation, but eventually she felt loved and accepted. Agustina discovered that life can be beautiful with your own bed and with regular meals and lots of friends. And she was happy. Education played a key role. Agustina learned that she was worth something as a human being, and she had a goal in life. She received vocational training that gave her a firm footing in life. Together with her husband and 2 children, she now lives in Cuernavaca, where she works as a prison physiotherapist. But today she's visiting her friend Lupita at the children's home and giving her a physical therapy session. When Agustina was a child, her drunken father once broke his leg while in a stupor. They were going to amputate it, but the leg was saved with physiotherapy. That inspired Agustina to become a physiotherapist herself. There's something symbolic about her helping people to stand on their own feet.
Del 1 al 10, el 9.
And in Cuernavaca, there are many programs that do just that. One of them is Marion Tavele's Art Therapy Workshop, which helps children work through the traumas they've experienced. In Haiti, NPH runs a second home in the capital Port-au-Prince, accommodating hundreds of children. It was set up in 2010 to provide shelter for children orphaned or abandoned after the earthquake. This house alone accommodates about 40. Many of them would certainly have died if they hadn't been rescued by NPH. In addition to providing a loving atmosphere, the home also gives the children quality education and later vocational training. NPH's outreach extends to the whole neighborhood. Children from poor families are also welcome at the school. Of the hundreds of children educated here, quite a few go on to university. The others learn technical professions and trades at vocational colleges. NPH has also established some 30 schools catering to 100,000 children in the slums of Port-au-Prince and the countryside. It constructs housing for the poor and provides water and food. Father Richard has also started a massive medical program that includes a number of hospitals. St. Damien Pediatric Hospital is the country's leading children's hospital, with a cancer ward and one for children suffering from malnutrition. It's funded by private donations, mostly from Catholics in Europe and North America. But child mortality remains a challenge in Haiti. Each year, 138,000 children die of treatable diseases.
I think it's wrong that there's science, that human beings can create medicines that will help you and keep you alive, like medicines for blood pressure, medicines for malaria, and things like that, and that people have no access to those medicines. It's wrong.
The hospitals need additional funding, but the world seems to have forgotten Haiti. NPH has recently expanded its work throughout South America, for instance here in Peru. In spite of Peru's economic development, many of its citizens live in abject poverty. In the hills above San Vicente de Cañete, some 150 kilometers south of the capital Lima, people live in slums without a sewer system or running water. A short distance away, on the outskirts of the city, is an NPC home accommodating about 100 children. The caregivers here try to communicate certain basic values, to give the children an orientation in life.
They try every day to be kind to each other, to greet each other, for example, with a hello, how are you doing? They try to share their toys with each other and be grateful for the little they have. Socialization can help children break the vicious cycle of the past.
Another important aspect is the work they do together.
The boys and girls also have to do an hour of manual work. So they weed the vegetable gardens or the lawn and the paths. The irrigation canals also have to be kept free. Working together in a team is a social value.
Many of the caregivers here are volunteers. They commit to living and working in an NPH home for a year. One of them is Kiran from Canada. He teaches music to young children and teenagers. Today it's Milagros' turn. There are caregivers on duty day and night, nurses to treat the children's physical ailments, and therapists for their psychological wounds. NPH is highly respected in Peru, even by the political establishment.
I'm grateful to the organization, and I congratulate Alfredo and his people on their work in Cañete province. They've bought 14 hectares of land and they're building houses. They're providing our children with shelter and education, and a good upbringing.
The chance of leading a happy life. NPH has already rescued more than 18,000 forsaken children in Latin America. Nuestros pequeños hermanos, our brothers and sisters.